Hi, everybody. It's Jennifer from Gals, Ghosts and Ladies on your typical Saturday night live stream. It is so nice to be here and so nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. You will notice that I got a little bandage on my face. It's all good. I had a little procedure done. It's no big deal. I don't even have any swelling. It's just to keep the sutures covered. So I really am fine, but I also think I positioned myself so that nobody's got to look at my bandage. I do apologize. If you don't like it, please move on. And again, I do apologize. So yeah, I had a little procedure done and it was no big deal. It went wonderfully. I loved South Coast Dermatology. They did a great job. And they said when they removed the thing, when they were done, that I'm probably going to have a little less wrinkles there. So that I can definitely live with. But on that note, this old sun bunny is just going to remind everybody to wear your SPF 70 out there. I had a cancerous thing removed from my face, and I'm fine. It's no big deal, but it's from years of laying out and as a teen with baby oil and all that kind of stuff. So, PSA, public service announcement: don't forget to wear your sunscreen when you are out in public. So again, I feel like I kind of have myself positioned so that nobody gets offended by my bandage. Let's see, I've got some comments over here. Hi, Mark. Hi, William. Hi, Kerry and Sandy and Joy and Sue. And hello, everybody. So again, I hope I'm not offending anybody with this and shutting my little heater off. I am coming at you live from Lizzie Lou Studio. And let's see, so I'm going to turn the banner off and show you a picture of where I am sitting. And I do have a blanket on my lap because it's very chilly. I'm in a little dormer. This is what I am looking at in Lizzie Lou Studio. And then the camera on the wall looks behind me, and then here's my backdrop for tonight. As you can tell, tonight we're going to be presenting the Scituate Lighthouse, and that was suggested by Will. Well, bear with me, I have to do a camera adjustment. There we go. Thank you. That's kind of one of the things about doing a live stream, is that you got to go with the flow and you got to fix those kind of technical things as they come up. Um, and I'm learning. I'm very new to live streaming. So if you do critique, please be kind. I do appreciate that. If you're going to bash me, DM me. Don't bash me in public. Thank you. Spare me the embarrassment. And if you've got a real critique, I'm definitely open-minded to it. And I'm always open-minded to new subjects. Let's see. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for watching on Facebook Live. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching now. And if you're watching at a later time, I appreciate that as well. I'm looking for one of my media assets. I do appreciate everybody that watches and follows me. I want to ask one more thing, most humbly, if you could go over to YouTube and like and subscribe. You don't really have to get notifications. That's all right with me. But liking and subscribing on YouTube helps me, I guess, build an algorithm is the lingo. I'm definitely not a TikTok girl on Facebook and YouTube. Not even an Instagram girl because I'm old. So any help that I get in supporting the channel, I do appreciate. I don't ask for any money, and I do pay for this out of my own pocket. So likes, shares, follows, all that kind of stuff is all I ask from you. At this point, I want to say hello to Ladybug Pest Control, my day job. You can't have a great night hobby without a great day job. As always, I'm grateful to Ladybug. I'm very fortunate to work a 4-day work week, so I have Fridays off. It helps me have time to do research and put my little shows together. And also my boss and friend Linda at Ladybug, she really supports what I do here, so I really appreciate that. And also appreciate that I've had some time off to take care of this. So thank you, Linda, and thank you, Ladybug, and all my friends at Ladybug. Excuse me, let's see. Now and later. Now and later. Like you guys, there are so many podcasts and so many live streams that I want to watch. If you don't have time to watch this now, watch it later. Sometimes if I don't have time or I'm busy to catch something, I'll watch it when I'm dusting or doing a little housework or putting on my makeup. So catch the show later if you can't catch it live, and I appreciate that as well. I am my own research assistant, so I do remind you of that. Any research errors are mine and mine alone. I am not going to cite my sources. You have a Google finger. If you find something interesting, look it up yourself. I will say this, if you know Pat Brown, the FBI criminal profiler, I've been following her lately and I really like her. I do agree with her for one thing about Wikipedia, is it's a really good place to start for an outline. So I will cite that one source as Wikipedia, and not always. I don't always use Wikipedia, but it's a really good place to start for an outline and give you some ideas and some places to branch off. It is not a great source. We all know that. Anybody can go into Wikipedia and make changes. And if you didn't know that before, now you do know that. That's why it's so unreliable. But it can give you a really good basis or outline for a research project. So let's see. And I am new to live streaming. I'm new to StreamYard. I think I'm getting better every week. For whatever it's worth, for all my friends that are watching and everybody that commented, I do spend a lot of time preparing for these shows. I should probably spend a little more time researching, but I do spend time on lighting. I spend time on backdrops. I check my audio before I go online. I check. If I'm going to live stream on Saturday night, I spend most of Saturday getting ready for it, because I want to do it right. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit better every week. I watch these people on YouTube. I'm like, I can do that. And I feel like I'm getting there, but I'm doing it on my own. I don't have any sponsors, don't have anybody backing me up. I have no technical advice. So again, all your support is much appreciated. And let's see, back over to the comments. Laurie, hello, Laurie. I'm feeling much better, thank you. And Laurie, I don't know if you heard earlier, but oh, maybe I didn't say it. Well, this week we're doing the Scituate Lighthouse, but next week we're going to be presenting Bisbee, Arizona. Bisbee, Arizona was suggested by my friend Kevin Thompson, who lives in Arizona, and he's made a couple of good recommendations to me so far. So he recommended it, but I had put a poll out a couple weeks back, and Laurie had voted for Bisbee, Arizona, and she got outnumbered. So I did something else. But because she spoke up and asked for it, I'm like, I've got to bump that up in the queue. So next week will be Bisbee, Arizona. And I'm really looking forward to that. I already started poking around on some research, and it's going to be a fun presentation, and it's going to be fun research. I feel like, oh my God. Full dork disclosure. I always loved writing an essay or a term paper. I feel like I'm like preparing for a school project every week. Like I'm writing a term paper every week. Here are my notes, and I'm doing an oral presentation. Here's my book report, Mr. Jones. Mark, you know who I'm talking about. Al Jones, everybody's favorite teacher at Bristol Eastern High School. Had him for English class and speech. Loved him very, very much. So anyways, all right, back to my little housekeeping list, and I am looking at my notes over here. And I also got to get back to some notes over here as well. Blah, blah, all errors are mine. This is an 18 and over conversation. You know what I like to say, sometimes I do get a little disturbed that we're not more disturbed by the disturbing things that we talk about. I don't think tonight's subject is going to be too disturbing, but again, keep it 18 and over. Plus, I like to swear. Those of you who know me know that I'm no stranger to swearing. My mother owned a construction company for 35 years. I know how to swear like a pro. And I do. And also, if you're tuning in tonight, get yourself comfortable. I got a blanket on my lap. I got a sweater on. I'm sitting in a nice cushy chair. Pour yourself a cup of coffee, glass of wine, crack a cold beer. I got my favorite Body Armor peach mango. I don't know. It's like a Gatorade kind of a beverage. It's a hydrating thing. But get your favorite beverage, and I'll remind you that this is a 420 friendly space. Smoke them if you got them, because I know I sure did. But my whole point is get comfortable and just relax. Let's have some fun. And I want everybody to just have a good time. And I will do my best to engage in the comments, but I am my own moderator. So, yep, Al Jones, Mark, that's right. And so again, hello to everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. I feel I have like a club here, and I just love you guys. So again, I hope you like the background for the Scituate Lighthouse. I also have like this. Can you there? You see my hands? This that green is like that's a light too. So I'm really trying to set a mood here in Lizzie Lou's studio for our talk tonight on Scituate Scituate Lighthouse. And there's definitely a ghost story associated with the Scituate Lighthouse. And I think if I had, 5 weeks to do a little bit more research, I would have found more ghost stories. But this is more than anything, it's a really freaking cool history story. And thank you, Sybil. I'm glad you like the background. And Will, I told you I got a special background just for presenting this for you because this was Will's suggestion. But again, the Scituate Lighthouse, not so much a ghost story. Again, there is a ghost story associated with it, but it's really just a really cool history story. In my research, I couldn't find any paranormal investigations that were done at the Scituate Lighthouse. I couldn't find, even like Ghost Adventures wasn't there, and even Sam and Colby, and none of the mainstream people were there, none of the off the beaten path people were there, like Seth Borden or Haunted Nights or whatever, Soul Seekers, those kind of people, the Wraith Chasers, none of those people have ever been here. So anything that I do have to say, what little bit about the ghost story is just kind of hearsay. They do, I guess, like ghost story tours, like a haunted tour. They'll tell you what goes on there, but they're not really investigations. So if anybody has any ins at the Scituate Lighthouse to get somebody in there to investigate, we know some good investigators that would love to get in there, especially after you hear this story. It just kind of made me think of Gettysburg, and some of you people have been to Gettysburg recently and have trips planned. You know who you are, and I know who you are too. So again, you will forgive me for referring to my notes, and again, my little bit of a different setup, trying a different angle, just to keep my bandage out of everybody's face. I'm very comfortable. I'm not having any pain. It itches. That's a good thing. That means I'm healing. There's about I don't know, I'd say about a 3.5-inch incision there, but it's fine. We're changing the bandage every day, and life goes on. Then I go Monday and have another one removed, and hopefully that'll be it for a while. But yeah, life goes on. I really consider myself very, very fortunate here. So, all right, so we're going to talk about the Scituate Lighthouse tonight. Scituate is located in Mass. And before we go on, I just want to we're going to talk about the Scituate Lighthouse, but there is another lighthouse, and this lighthouse was built to actually replace the Scituate Lighthouse. And it's called, let me get over to my notes, Sue. I'm going to give my friend Sue Jacobucci a shout out. Minot's Ledge Light, and you can read about it in Morbid Curiosity number 11, the Haunted Hometowns issue. And again, my good friend Sue Jacobucci wrote the story or the essay Haunted Sentinel 143, which is an essay about the Minot's Ledge Light and Haunted Sentinel being a lighthouse, and 143 meaning I love you, because it was said that lighthouses, or at least this one, had beamed 143, which could mean I love you. So I don't know the whole story. But you have to read Sue's story. I haven't read this one yet, but I want to assure you, anything that you read by Sue is very informative and a good read. Always interesting stuff. So I'm going to put that back up again. Look this up, Morbid Curiosity number 11, and read Minot's Ledge Light by Sue Jacobucci. You will not be disappointed. And I'm going to get an autographed copy to add to my library. So thank you, Sue. But there's your shout out, Sue. So the Scituate Lighthouse. So like I said, Sue's story is about the Minot's Ledge Lighthouse, which was built at a later time to replace the lighthouse I'm going to tell you about. Scituate, Massachusetts. Here it is. I would say, I don't know, I didn't measure this, but I'm gonna, I don't live that far from here. I live in Quincy, which is right smack dab between Boston and Scituate Harbor. So I'm gonna say, I don't know, 25 miles, maybe, give or take. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but it's not gonna be that much of a difference. Um, and let's see, and okay, so that's kind of the bigger picture, but now let's kind of hone in on it. The Scituate Lighthouse is at the very, very tip of that peninsula, and you see Scituate Harbor, and then you've got whatever Old Sow, I don't know what that is. But that's the Atlantic Ocean wide open there, and this is an even better visual. So there is the lighthouse, and if you look to the right, there's the wide open Atlantic Ocean. So that kind of gives you a sense of where you are. Now, this town that is about 25 miles south of Boston, believe it or not, here's facta obscura early on. Usually I don't throw really weird shit out until later on. Who knew? Scituate is the most Irish town in the United States. Who knew that? I would have pegged Boston or even Chicago. In my head, I tend to think of Scituate actually Italian, like contractors and masons and that kind of stuff. I wonder if anybody else. So, 25 miles. I made a good guess. Thank you, Sue. I made a really good guess. Um, so, let's see, where was I? All right, yeah. So the most Irish town in America. I just never would have guessed that. Scituate, and it's a fairly small town. It's just outside of the Bridgewater Triangle, so it's in a very interesting area. It's I've got a couple of interesting facts here. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to throw them out there. Scituate, Massachusetts coastline has had more shipwrecks than any other U.S. coastline in American history, or in history. So there's another facta obscura. Scituate, Massachusetts, the Scituate Harbor coastline has had more shipwrecks than any other U.S. coastline. There were 95 documented shipwrecks between 1807 and 1909, but that wasn't all of them. 1807 to 1909, a little over 100 years. But there's a history of shipwrecks in Scituate Harbor going back to 1690, and there was another shipwreck in the 1930s. I think there were two shipwrecks in the 1930s. One of them was very deadly. And then there was another shipwreck in the 1950s. So 95 documented shipwrecks between 1807 and 1919, a little over 100 years. But again, the history of shipwrecks goes back to the late 1600s, early 1700s, and continues right into the 50s. So these are very treacherous waters. It's open waters, but they're treacherous waters as well. So 95 documented shipwrecks in a little over 100 years. That in and of itself is a lot. And then again, when you figure it goes back to 1690, I don't know, when did the Pilgrims land in Plymouth at Plymouth Rock? In 16, I know it was in the 1600s, don't know what year, but then sorry, I don't know that. But there's some interesting tidbits about Scituate. So let's see, back to this sort of further kind of drill this down where this lighthouse is. It's in this area called Cedar Point in Scituate Harbor. And like I said, south of Boston, it's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable to the elements. It's got rocky areas. Again, you got to think of shipwrecks and that kind of thing. And also, it has a very exposure. It's very open. Let me go back to the photograph. That if you look to the right, very wide open to the Atlantic Ocean. So this particular lighthouse in Scituate, it was started in 1810 and construction was completed in September of 1811. Excuse me, I'm going to adjust my notes. And at that time, in 1811, it was only the 11th lighthouse in the United States. Now, let me give you some context about that. I found, again, here's some more facta obscura. Here are some really cool, interesting facts. So at this time, in 2026, I want to say 2025, in 2026, there are between 700 and 780 operational lighthouses like right now, at this minute, at any given time on any given day right now. So between 700 and 780 operational lighthouses. That includes the coastlines on the Atlantic and the Pacific. It also includes lakes and rivers, and also Lake Michigan having the most. It has 129. There are 129 lighthouses on Lake Michigan. So, and another interesting fact, historically, in the United States, there were over 1,500 lighthouses built. And I think we know there were big movements back in the 70s to restore a lot of them. This one was no different. This one needed restoring as well. But historically, over 1,500 lighthouses were built in the United States, with a peak operating in 1910, a peak number simultaneously 850 running all at once in 1910. And interestingly, Boston Light, which is not the lighthouse we're discussing tonight, we're discussing the Scituate Lighthouse, but Boston Light remains to be the only fully manned lighthouse in the United States where all other lighthouses have some sort of automation. So there is some lighthouse history. And when I ran across these facts, I'm like, that's some cool stuff to start out with. I had no idea. Scituate is practically in my backyard. I live in Quincy. So there's some cool lighthouse history, and also, like I said, a little bit of history about Scituate, the most Irish town in America. Who knew? I know Boston being very Irish, but I would have even guessed Chicago. Of course, Chicago being a city, I don't know if that's a mitigating factor there. But anyway, so construction was completed in September of 1811, and it was the 11th lighthouse in the country. So think back how many there are and how many there were. So this was very, very early on. The country was only 35 years old. And it's at this time, it is the oldest complete lighthouse and lighthouse keeper's cabin in one in the United States. So it's the oldest complete lighthouse and keeper house in the United States. And there it is. And I'm sure that the lighthouse and the house have had renovations, but they're basically the same. And those of us that do live in Massachusetts know the integrity of those kind of like historical buildings and stuff. So I think that was cool too. I just found there again, this isn't really so much a mysterious and macabre story, as it is just a bunch of really cool stuff about history. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. And let's see, we'll jump over to comments. And oh, hi, Jenna. Nice to see you. My friend Jenna in Texas, and Lori is in California, and I've got Mark in Connecticut, and I've got my Massachusetts friends. Thank you, everybody. I feel like I'm bad. I'm nationwide. Thank you all for tuning in. So anyways, back to our story. And again, thank you, nobody, for minding about this thing on my face. It's not bothering me any. I hope the camera angle is working. So anyways, let's see, the oldest complete lighthouse and keeper house in the United States. Now, let's see, again, how do I want to put my timing here? So it was completed in September 1811. Let me back up a little. No, let me go forward a little bit. June 11th, 1814. Scituate Harbor was attacked by the British. Remember, I said that this is wide open to the Atlantic Ocean, right? So June 11th, 1814, Scituate Harbor was attacked by the British, and the British Navy, I was going to say the British Army, I guess it would be the British Navy, raided, plundered, and burned 8 ships that the United States had docked in Scituate Harbor. And that was a real blow to the United States Navy. And the plundering of supplies was a real blow at that time. 8 ships burned. I mean, people died. It was really a big deal. And on another occasion, the British were encroaching into the harbor, and the people of Scituate fired, they had 2 small cannons, and they fired 2 small cannons, and the British retreated without retaliating at that time, thankfully. So let's see, somehow I neglected to write the year that the family moved in to take it. It would have to be in 1811. Okay, so in 1811, the first lighthouse keeper moved into the Scituate Lighthouse with his family. Simeon Bates and his wife, Rachel, I think it is. They moved in with their 9 children. So that wasn't unheard of back then. They didn't have the pill, so, and, so to have 9 kids wasn't a big deal. Also, people were homesteaders. You had children, and you put your children to work in the fields as young as 2 and 3 and 4 years old. And if you don't believe me, you can look that up yourself. Get your Google finger out. It is true. Toddlers were put to work in the fields. So the family of Simeon Bates, not only were they the lighthouse keepers, but they were also farmers. They grew vegetables. They grew small grains. They had small livestock. They owned a small store. So they had a lot of things going on besides just being a lighthouse keeper. And I would imagine that the pay of a lighthouse keeper wouldn't support a family of 9. Probably was just room and board or something like that. Yeah, Jenna, your grandmother had 9 kids. That is a lot of kids. That's what I'm saying. I'm sure your granny couldn't have supported them on the pay of a single, or well, not single back then, but on the pay of a lighthouse keeper. So Simeon Bates and his wife Rachel and their 9 children were also farmers, and they were shopkeepers, and they kept livestock. Also interesting, Bates is a very, very big name in this area. Bates were very heavily involved in the shoe industry in this area. Anybody who knows anything about, Weymouth, Abington, that kind of geographic location, which is not far from Scituate, big shoe industry. Stetson is out of there, and Knapp shoes are out of there, a lot of other shoes. There's also an opera house called the Bates Opera House, and I actually did an investigation near where the Bates Opera House used to stand. So anyways, my point is Bates was a very, very big name in the area. And I'm apologizing. I need a new microphone stand, so I'm kind of decorating this one. Sorry about that. So Simeon Bates, the lighthouse keeper, I want to say the gatekeeper, no, the lighthouse keeper, he was a Revolutionary War veteran. So this was 1811, the Revolutionary War being fought, I think, between 1774 and 1776. If I am wrong, I apologize. That research assistant, I really count on her. But if she's wrong, and for fun and games, what does a family of 9 do? They learned to play instruments. So it was a big deal for the family to learn to play fife and drum. I looked at who's watching. Mark, I know you're from, well, Mark, bring you into the conversation. David Seidlinger, my neighbor, we used to listen to the Forestville Fife and Drum in the summertime. We could hear it. They practiced at Westwood School, and we could hear it. And there was nothing more patriotic than it was the bicentennial 1976, and it was summer nights, and it was late till 9:30, 10 o'clock, and we'd be playing and out in the street, and you could hear the echo from the school of the Forestville Pipe and Drum Corps. And I don't think it's called, I don't know if that wasn't the name of it. I apologize, but that was really cool. But anyways, that's what families did. They took up musical instruments. So I imagine this family of 9 had quite a band going in their house, right? When they were all there. But let's see. Oh, and what did they learn? What do you learn? You learn military songs. That's what they learned. They didn't have pop music. There was no Britney Spears, and there was no Shake It Off, and there was no Creedence Clearwater Revival. Although I guess that music comes from, I'm thinking like military songs and Creedence, blah, blah. I'm getting off the beaten path here. Sorry about that. Anyways, back to Simeon Bates. Yeah, he was a Revolutionary War veteran, and let's see, very locally known, very civically active, a lot of community involvement. But I think back in that day and age, you really had to be. Neighbors really depended on neighbors, even if they weren't like right next door, like Mark, like David Seidlinger, 20 feet from my house. We were 20 feet apart. No, neighbors were further apart, but they really depended on each other. So anyways, This is how the tale goes at the Scituate Lighthouse. On September 1st, 1814, Simeon Bates and his wife Rachel took 6 of their children into town for the day. They went into town to not only get supplies, but they also went to visit family. So the whole idea was that they were going to be gone for the entire day. They left behind 3 of their children. One young son who I couldn't track down his age or his name, and he doesn't seem quite too relevant to the story. So whoever he is, forgive me, I'm sorry about that. But 2 of the daughters were also left behind. 21-year-old, one of them was 21 and one was 16. Let's see if I've got their name here. 2 daughters. Okay, Rebecca, daughter Rebecca, 21, and daughter Abigail, aged 15. And again, one young son. Well, oh, I dropped a note. Hold on. Dropped a note. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. So during that day, when the family was gone to Scituate for the day and left the 3 children, which was not bad at all, under the care of an adult daughter, 21, and another 16-year-old daughter. But while they were gone, the 3 kids saw a British warship anchored out in the harbor. And they saw the redcoats, literally the redcoats, disembarking the warship and getting onto rowboats and starting to row in. Now, you've got these 3 kids. Their parents aren't home. There's no cell phones. There's no time to do anything. So the quick-thinking Rebecca, the oldest daughter, said to her sister, "Get your drum," and she grabbed her fife, and they hightailed it down to the Cedar Grove. So remember I said this lighthouse was at Cedar Point, and there's a cedar grove there of cedar trees, and they hightailed it down there. And goosebumps at this. They began playing Yankee Doodle Dandy, and they began playing louder and harder and faster until the music echoed through the cedar trees and carried out over the water, and the redcoats thought the Scituate militia was gathering, and they turned around and they rowed back to their warship, and they re-embarked, and they lifted their anchor, and they went back out. And those 2 girls, who knows what they saved? Who knows who they saved? Who knows the lives they've saved? The resources that they saved? Remember I said that earlier, the redcoats had destroyed 8 ships, but not only destroyed 8 ships, they plundered. And you have to plunder, the definition of plunder, man, you go in and you take somebody else's shit. And to do that to a community, not just to Scituate, these 8 ships didn't just belong to Scituate, they belonged to the United States military, the new United States, who was fighting against this tyranny in England. That these 2 girls playing their instruments loud and with fervor, I'm sure, and probably with sweat flying off their face, and a fight and fingers, and they must have been out of breath and so frightened, and they scared the redcoats off, and they saved the day. And I just thought that was cool as shit, and that just made all my research for the whole day, where they said, well, it doesn't even matter if there's a ghost story. That was the coolest thing this girl's going to hear all day, all at the Scituate Lighthouse, which is just, if it's 25 miles from Boston, it's probably 10, 12 miles from me. So they were heroes. They were heroes in the town of Scituate. and they were heroes into the United States, and they were known, and they are still known throughout history as an army of two. Um, and I just am amazed and very grateful to these two girls, and they must have been very, very brave. And brave certainly doesn't mean fearless, because I'm sure they were frightened, but they were brave, and they really faced something huge, and very using their ingenuity. I don't know that I would have thought of that, but it was brilliant. And you know how the sound carries across the water, so I just think it was a very smart thing to do. Very, very smart thing to do. So Captain Bates, their father, he stayed working at the lighthouse until his death in the 1830s. And the sisters ended up living on Jericho Road in Scituate. And any of my Massachusetts peeps um, know where that is. And Scituate's got some really nice houses, really nice areas. But the sisters ended up living in a home on Jericho Road until their death. Congress was so grateful for what these two girls had done that Congress awarded them a pension, and a hero's pension. I don't know if they even do that anymore. But so the girls, they didn't live to collect the pension. They both died, and I'm sure they were women, not girls, when they died. But that is the story of the Scituate Lighthouse and the hauntings. And again, I couldn't find anything of anybody doing any paranormal investigations there, because I would love to get in there myself. It is when you go down there that you hear Yankee Doodle Dandy. You hear that fife and drum playing. And anybody that's been to Gettysburg, again, that's you hear and you see these things, and I would love to get in there. And again, a family of 9 would just leave such an energy. There's rocks there. I'm a firm believer in the stone tape theory. Look that one up. Basically, it's the theory that certain types of stone will hold memories or energy, almost like a tape recorder, and can replay them later. So anyways, I kind of digress. So, but that's the story of the Scituate Lighthouse. And again, I couldn't find any mainstream people. Certainly there were plenty of top 25 haunted lighthouses in the United States. Yes, a lighthouse road trip would be very cool. Sybil, I totally agree. But you could find all kinds of stuff about lighthouses, but you couldn't find anything specific about, like I said, gals, ghosts, and ladies investigates the haunted Scituate Lighthouse. But that's all right. It was still just a great story. And I certainly hope that you enjoyed hearing that. I do have, see, a couple other things that I'll just kind of throw out there. I hope that you did enjoy that little bit of trivia about the haunted or about lighthouses. I thought that was interesting. 1,500 through the years, and over 800 operational lighthouses at their peak in the United States in, I think it was 1910. You should pay attention, because I'm telling you, I am developing a game show, and you guys need to go back and watch my live streams, because there are going to be categories of stuff that you are only going to learn right here. Facta Obscura, brought to you by gals, ghosts, and ladies. Joy, I'm glad you loved that story. Yeah, I thought it was a cool story too. So let's see. So in 1850, the Scituate Lighthouse went out of service. And Sandy, yeah, you're probably going to find, just, I'm sure there's a rabbit hole to fall down. And if you find any investigations, let me know. Post a link. I would love to check it out. But it went out of service, and the Minot's Ledge, Sue, here's that interesting piece of history. Minot's Ledge Lighthouse was built in 1852 to replace the Scituate Lighthouse, and the Minot's Ledge Lighthouse was destroyed by a storm and had to be rebuilt. So I'm sure there's way more history there. In 1855, the Scituate Lighthouse received a new lens, which I guess is always nice for a lighthouse. And in 1860, it was removed from service, and a second Minot's Ledge Light, say that 3 times fast, was built. Over 60 years, the Scituate Lighthouse fell into disrepair, and in 1916, it was put up for sale, and the town of Scituate bought it for the hefty sum of 1917, the hefty sum of $4,000. And it continued to fall into disrepair. If you know anything about Scituate and Scituate Harbor, and of course, anything that's on the water takes a beating with painting and exposure to the elements and that kind of stuff. It really fell into disrepair. And in 1962, the Scituate Historical Society put up $6,500 to restore it. And in 1988, it became on the national. It became registered on the National Register of Historic Places. And in 2022, the Scituate Lighthouse began a $2 million, I'm sure much deserved, renovation. So that is the story of the Scituate Lighthouse. And again, maybe I couldn't find so much about haunting, but if anybody else does, please feel free to share. This was my research during my recuperation time from my little nip tuck on my face here. And by the way, I want to thank everybody for the kind words, the concerns, the prayers. Keep them coming. Like I said, I got another thing that I'm going to have done on my back on Monday, and I'll keep you all posted. As always, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you everybody for engaging. Sybil and Joy and Sandy and Sue and Mark and whoever I'm forgetting, I do apologize. Thank you all, and I'll talk to some of you throughout the week. Tell me some of your lighthouse stories. And yes, I do need to rest from here. I'm going to go to my bed, and then I'm going to watch this live stream on YouTube from my TV. I watch them afterwards and kind of critique myself so that I can make improvements. And I hope it shows. I'm trying to get better every week. So on that note, again, everybody, I hope you really, really enjoyed the Scituate Lighthouse story. And I want to thank Will. There we go. Sue, there you have got to get this book and read Sue's story. And go back and follow the comments. There's more interesting information there. Thank you, everybody, again. And I will see you all next week when we're going to talk about Bisbee, Arizona. Good night, everybody. And Nathan, thank you. And thank you all for wishing me luck. Bye-bye, everybody.